Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the MidBeach Neighborhood Association's November 2023 monthly membership meeting. MBNA represents condominiums and hotels from 24th to 63rd Street along Collins Avenue and Indian Creek Drive here in Miami Beach, Florida. Today's agenda will be reviewing an amenity or a possibility for hotels and condominiums to consider adding to their properties, as well as discussing some important issues along Indian Creek Drive. We'll give you an update on the pedestrian pathway and some presentations and upcoming meetings. In those properties that we are looking to review, as well as the potential public space dog park around 36 and Collins. And of course, we'll get to our Beachwalk items and the Miami Beach Drive, as well as our main item for today, which will be discussing the insurance crisis. And I know we've discussed this in the past with members, but now that condominiums are in their budget season, it's ever more important to share an update, and hopefully we'll have some of our elected official members with us today to help guide that conversation. So before we jump into those items, though, I'd like to welcome our other board of director members. I'm Ana Marie Ferreira de Mello. I'm the president of MBNA, and our annual elections are in April. So if you're interested in being part of any of our working groups or running for the board of directors, we welcome you to reach out to us, get to know MBNA. We're currently at capacity with all of our condominium seats are full, as well as our hotel representative seats. But if you're interested in serving in the next term, we welcome you to reach out. I would like to welcome our latest board member. This is his first meeting as an official board member, Randy Hollingworth. Randy, you're here with us today.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and part of this group. It's a great, exciting opportunity for myself, having lived here in Miami Beach and really not been that involved with the community. And I really think this is a great opportunity to really help make an impact on the sort of the lifestyle of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. And Randy's trade is he's a landscape architect, and as he mentioned, he's been a long time resident and owner here in Miami Beach, and in the short tenure with MBNA has really provided an enormous amount of insight and enthusiasm for many of the issues that are impacting our area. So thank you, Randy. Alicia Casanova, ex officio board member and chair of the Beachwalk and Collins North working groups. Alicia, are you here?
Hi. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you all for our final 2023 MBNA board meeting. So we welcome you.
Thank you. Deborah Lake, our vice president and chair of the Public Space Working Group. You here with us?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So nice to see you guys. Welcome, Randy. And I also think we're going to be welcoming our new captain from MidBeach. So can't wait.
Thank you, Deborah. And also just to mention, Randy is the co-chair along with Esteban Porcelli, who is not with us today, but they are both co-chairing the Indian Creek Working Group. Oscar Vasquez, who is our the chair of our Beach and Water Quality Working Group. Oscar.
Thank you, Ana Marie, and good evening to everybody.
Thank you, Oscar. And Justin Jacobs, who is the treasurer of MBNA. Justin.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Justin. And our hotel representatives, Jose Flores.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And Michelle Redlick.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Michelle. Thank you for being here. And we do have several special guests. Captain Shannon Madison is here with us today, and we'll hear a little more. We'll give a more formal introduction. I believe our beloved Officer Hawsey is here, and he'll be able to provide that introduction. But before we do, we have some elected officials I'd like to recognize, as well as some candidates. We are a week away, or a little less than a week away from elections. So if you have not done early voting, and we encourage you to look at the candidate forum in early September on our website and get to know your candidates and vote during this coming week. We'll have early voting over the next few days, and then the official day will be next Tuesday. So for our elected officials that are here with us today, I'd like to recognize both elected official and current mayor candidate, Commissioner Minor.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Great to have you here. We
Sure.
also,
Michael Gongora.
we also have another mayoral candidate, Michael Gongora.
Hi, good evening, everybody. We're all here at early voting at City Hall. If you haven't voted yet, it's open this week at City Hall and North Beach Library from 11 to 7 and Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Thank you. And I sincerely apologize, Commissioner Laura Dominguez, and your name, I didn't have Commissioner written on it, so I apologize. I skipped over you, but our current City of Miami Beach Commissioner, Laura Dominguez.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, thank you for being with us. And we'll get to your item in just a moment as well. We also have Senator Shervin Jones as a representative. Marina, are you with us today?
Hi there. Yes. Thank you so much, Anne Marie, for having me. I know that Senator Jones won't be able to make it. Hopefully Senator Pizzo will, but in case anyone does have questions about property insurance later in the program, in the meeting, I'll definitely bring those back to both members.
Thank you, Marina, for being with us, and thank you for your continued support and assistance on with the item. We also have Monica, our aide to Commissioner Fernandez's office. Monica, are you with us?
I'm here. Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Hi, Monica.
Thank you so much. And
Candidate Joe Magazine.
Candidate Joe Magazine.
Yep. Hi all, thank you for having me in front of City Hall, so apologies, I'm just pacing around. But again, hope to see everybody out at early voting.
Great to see you twice in one day.
Thank you for voting today, yes.
I can't believe you're still out there so many years. I mean, so many years, it feels like years ago, so many hours later. So it's great to see that. Any other candidates that I might have missed? Our commission or elected officials? I know Commissioner Higgins from our County District 5 office has a town hall meeting and wasn't able to join us today. Amber, you from Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's office?
Hi, Anna Marie. Thank you. Yes, I'm here. So if there's any questions that could be pointed to Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's office, I'm here to take them.
If you can add her name to your renaming so that we have everybody and we know who you're representing, that would be great. Because I take screenshots throughout the meeting and those get posted on the website later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and it always helps me, please, with facilitation, if you could add your title or your position, your condominium, or the hotel that you're representing during MBNA's calls. It really does help. Just a lot of us have very similar names and sometimes it's hard for us to navigate. So welcome everyone. Now we're going to jump into our items. And just before we get to those items, I do think that we want to take a moment because we don't have a public safety item today. We just want to introduce Captain Shannon Madison, who is with us, and Officer Hazy, if you would do me the favor of presenting Captain Madison.
Of course, and hi, good afternoon. Good to see everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Officer Hazy. I'm your neighborhood resource officer, and I'm here to introduce our newly appointed captain, Captain Shannon Madison. She brings a wealth of knowledge and many years of experience. So let's go ahead and welcome her.
Thank you everyone for having me here. Good afternoon. I am Captain Shannon Madison. I am the Area 2 MidBeach captain for your area. And I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So Captain Madison, share a little more with us. So we've seen Officer Hazy as our neighborhood resource officer that he mentioned a moment ago. We've seen him everywhere, right? We see him when we're walking along 41st. We see him when we're, down Collins, Indian Creek. We're at the pharmacy or anywhere else around the school. We always see Officer Hazy. What we have also seen over the last 5 years that 5-6 years that MBNA has been around, we've had several captains. And so when we start really thinking about the data that can help inform or better understanding what some of our security issues are, or during those high impact weekends, like during Art Basel or the boat show or spring break, we reach out to our captains and we talk about sometimes issues that we have, and it takes a long time for these place-based type topics or issues or items, however people want to talk about them, to get resolved. And then we have new captains, and the system kind of it's just hard for us and layman folks that are not in law enforcement to understand why we always have a new captain, how you all get promoted and shifted over a couple of years. And is that why, is it to better understand the entire city, or what's the nature of that? And also, can you share with us a little bit about your background? When I heard that you have worked in a lot of positions and that you have gone up the ranks and that you're very respected and have done some really amazing work and service for our community. So thank you. If you could share with all of us a little more about your history and then also the structure, because I want to be able to figure out how we can maximize our relationship. So MBNA's, MidBeach Neighborhood Association's relationship with the police department, and have some continuity and be able to really think about how do we resolve some of the public safety issues that we see are not only rising, but some that are definitely of constant concern.
So I have been a police officer for 30 years. I've been a supervisor since 2010. My last area of assignment was Area 3, which is north of 63rd Street. I had some contact with Area 2. So I've dealt with your 27th Street, your 24th Street in the beach, in that area, Fontainebleau, so on and so forth. I've been in various areas throughout the department. Right now, the change is we have a new chief, and every chief determines, prioritize what needs to be done citywide and who's the best people to do those jobs. He makes those changes according to what he sees fit, along with his team, as anyone does with your board as well, for the best interest of the department and the city. And that's where I am now. I am familiar with Area 2, which we would call it, which is MidBeach. It was a part of my group. My main group, however, was Area 3, which was north of 63rd Street. I am very much excited about doing new things and finding new solutions, or reinforcing the solutions that have already been in place to be stronger, and taking on suggestions that we can, that are possible, because I don't want to sell you something that can't be done. Transparency and communication is going to be the key. I just was awarded my city cell phone, so I'm going to make sure that's on my email account, and you'll be able to contact me. I work Monday through Thursday, and then I look at and read my emails and listen to my messages in between on my time off. But very approachable. I am very proactive. I do walk the boardwalk. I do walk 41st Street. I do walk in Venetian, all these other places, and yours is one that I find very important as well.
Thank you so much, Captain. We're excited to work with you, and I just want to open it up to the board. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions or anything that you would like to share with the officer or the captain?
We just welcome you, and we're excited to have a face that we can put together when we have an issue that we need to contact someone. I know Officer Hazy is amazing, and he's our liaison, but to have you on board for our area specifically is great. So thank you, and thank you for joining this meeting.
Thank you.
And anyone from our membership, of our general members, that would like to make a comment or question or bring anything up that with regards to public safety or for the officer and the captain. Hear none. Thank you so much again for being with us today. I'm going to refrain from asking you to put your cell phone number in the chat. Deborah, if she has it, then we'll try to filter all of our requests. I know sometimes in that heat of the moment, it's hard for us to hold back. We do have the number for non-emergency phone calls to the police department on our homepage of our website, which is midbeach.net, for everybody to go ahead and call and report. We do encourage all of our members, take pictures, take videos, call the police department in the moment and report, because we here in MidBeach underreport issues continuously. And so I'm going to take Charlotte Tomic. You have your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to ask about the beach walk itself in terms of whether there are going to be more patrols on the beach walk, especially when it gets dark, because it's been getting dark earlier. And it's unusual to actually see someone driving through at night when it's dark, and just creates kind of an unsafe atmosphere.
Right now, we're getting together with our major we have a new major, which is Major Ian Robinson, and he's devising a new plan to redirect our resources. Right now, we do have an officer to go out there as a watch order type, where they go out and they check the area, they do a park and walk on the shift. There's no specific time. However, we also have our park rangers in addition to go through, and we're looking at maybe having some ATVs to go along the beach at different times. At nighttime, we're looking at lighting. There's other issues and other things that we're looking at to make a better area in totality.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte, for your question, and thank you, Captain, for your response. Okay, we're going to move into the beach walk. We have Commissioner Laura Dominguez with us today, who's going to also share a little more. And before I hand it over to Alicia Casanova, the beach walk co-chair, to lead that item, I would like to welcome candidate Andres Acion. Are you with us today? I apologize earlier that I weren't called.
I am here. I've been here on the call. Thank you very much. I've been on the call.
Great to see you, and I apologize not calling you earlier. It looks like you might also be at the voting or in a
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in City Hall here.
Okay, great. Thanks to all of our candidates for joining us and all our elected officials. Alicia?
Okay, beach walk. So we all share the same frustrations when we're out on the beach walk, especially south of 47, with all the multiple modal forms of transportation and the cyclists zigzagging their ways through the pedestrians, and many of us don't feel safe using the beach walk, especially during peak hours because of this. So the MBNA has been involved with the whole entire beach walk project since inception. And we advocated for a divider line so that people that don't think can stay right, basically stay right. We encouraged the city to do a pilot program in the 25th Street area, and the Department of Transportation was not too happy with the results. So we agreed to do a center line, a white, simple, not extremely visible, but visible enough to direct people to stay right. And also we helped the city design a signage that is common sense signage, which is yield to pedestrians, stay right, be careful, just signage so that bicycle riders that are speeding their way can read it and hopefully use common sense and avoid more accidents, since there are a lot of accidents and unreported accidents that take place in Miami Beach between pedestrians and bicyclists. We understand everybody's frustrated with the electric vehicle. So it says, of course, no motorized vehicles on the beach walk. But we can put all the signs we want, but if we don't have somebody enforcing these rules, the problem will continue. All different ideas have come up through the years as to how can we help this. We came up with the idea of possibly creating a pedestrian lane east of the dunes area. We've come up with all different solutions, but at this point we are at the simplest one, and we reached out to Commissioner Dominguez who's always been an MBNA friend, and we said, you know, can you help us continue the center line south of 24th, actually through the entire Beachwalk, except where it's already created with pavers that we requested at the time. So she has put this forward in the city, and she's going to give us a little bit of a few updates on the signage. So it'll be signage and the center line with the arrows, right arrows and left arrows. Those of you that walk the area know what we're talking about. It stopped like at 29th, and now we're advocating for it to continue all the way up through 47th, where the brick divider lines exist and the palm trees. But south of that really needs them ASAP. So where are we, Commissioner Dominguez?
Thank you very much, Alicia and Anna Marie and the entire MBNA board. I will say that because of your neighborhood association, you first brought to us the safety issues that pedestrians were experiencing on the beach walk. And that's when the first pilot started in May of 2022. That one was not as successful. So we did the modified pilot starting in September of last year. And that had a lot better results. And that's what we're moving forward with. Yes, as you mentioned, it's currently from 15th through 24th Street. And the configuration is to have that white separator. And then if you're headed south, stay to the right. If you're headed north, stay to the right. So regardless of whether you're a cyclist or a pedestrian, stay to the right. And that's been what has worked the best. Where we're at, I met with the transportation department, Jose Gonzalez, and I also had a meeting today with the city manager. The city did fund $200,000 for this project, and we're currently in the phase of selecting an approved vendor with the city. That will be done by the end of the calendar year, with the project to begin at the beginning of next year. The city manager is very excited to get this done as quickly as possible. So we're looking to get 2 crews so that they can simultaneously work and finish this for the entire beach walk. So you guys advocated for your area, but because of your advocacy, we're going to do it on the entire beach walk because it makes sense and it'll keep pedestrians and everyone safe. So hopefully by the beginning of next year is when we'll have the project expanded, since we're selecting a vendor now.
And here on
there
the
will be
screen,
the signs that you mentioned as well.
if you take a look at the screen, I'm sharing our website. When you look at our website, under topics of interest, everything that the MBNA works on and has been working on. So this is what we're referring to as far as the arrows. As you can see, it works. And this is the go slow, share the path, keep right. Okay, also the signage. These are the violations that were issued for in the Beachwalk pedestrian path, something we were advocating for before. So let me see what else is in here. And no motorized rides. When you have some time, you can go in there and see where we are with all these other things. This is the installation of bollards 2023 that we've just been talking about. So I just wanted to share that with you so that everybody understands what we mean. And I was out there last week, and honestly, it's so much better when you follow the right and stay here. I mean, you'd think it was common sense to do that, but people need directions, so it helps. And of course, if you see motorized vehicles, make sure you take pictures or videos and send them to us, share them with us on the chats. If you're not on our chat, make sure you register so we can get on the MBNA members chat and let us know what you see. Okay.
Thank you, Alicia. Commissioner Dominguez, did you have some closing thoughts?
Well, some closing thoughts. I think we have our transportation director on the phone as well. And
yes, I'm here.
Hi there, Jose. Was there anything that I missed on what I shared with MBNA?
Not at all, Commissioner. You hit all the highlights.
And do you know if we will have increased park rangers on the beach walk?
So, Commissioner, I'm going to defer to police. I'm not sure if Officer Hazi is still on the call, but the enforcement aspect of the beach walk, particularly, catching all those motorized scooters and other electric mobility devices on the beach walk. That's a focus of our park rangers that are constantly walking and patrolling the beach walk, as well as police officers. They actually have a detail that they call Operation Clear Path, to catch all these people violating that provision of the code. So I'm not sure if anyone from police is on with regard to the enforcement of that ordinance.
Hey, how are you? So yeah, so we do have officers on the boardwalk as well as the park rangers. And yes, we're writing uniform traffic citations for those violations. I believe it's 70-67. I might be quoting it wrong, but yes, we are enforcing.
Thank you. And so that is the update. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be on to help answer. So will Jose.
It would be great to see what, based on the enforcement efforts, what happens prior to the installation of these lines and post installation of the lines. Or, I mean, it would just be neat to understand what these modifications, how they impact the behavior in our community. The cameras that were, is that also police, Mr. Gonzalez? Is that also police, or who?
Yes.
Okay, so the cameras were installed, and Captain Madison, do you know what is happening now with your new chief? Is his vision to have someone reviewing these cameras in real time, or having at least some kind of analytics that would help inform interventions or police, or when we need more enforcement and out there?
Right now with our high security, we're trying to do more cameras all across the board, across the city, and it's still a work in progress. We have not been given all of the specifics yet, but it is working towards more security, reference to high visibility and high risk locations that we have throughout our city.
And aside from installing the cameras, is there any plan to assess the inputs from those cameras?
There are meetings ongoing right now. We'll have to wait until we have more specifics on that subject. Some of that is not out to the public because of other security features.
Thank you so much. We have Oscar Vasquez from MBNA has a question. Oscar?
Yeah, thanks again, Laura and Jose, for your hard work in moving this forward. I echo Elisa's comments on what a difference it's made. One thing I want to try to get the group to start looking at is that, and we talked about this a couple of years ago, is that the conversion rate to motorized bicycles is going exponential as the prices go down. And I've talked to some people that feel that their bicycles are exempt since they can obviously turn the motor off and pedal power only. So this whole phenomenon is going to really complicate the enforcement of this. So it's something to start thinking about, how we're going to approach that. Obviously, one of the things could be clarification by way of signage on whether those motorized bicycles will be allowed or not. I've seen some where you can't even tell they have a motor. It's just all built into the sprocket and the battery's removable. So those are the ones that we are seeing right now flying at a very good clip, up to 25, 28 miles per hour. So something to think about there if it's not on your radar yet. Thank you.
And I just want to add to Oscar's comment. So when we think about micromobility and e-bikes and where we're going as a group, right, in active transportation and kind of the movement throughout our city, but in better connecting our city, it's those motorized not modalities, but bikes and scooters. Yeah, so all of that is somewhat a part of our future. So how are we going to, what will enforcement do? How are we going to provide amenities throughout and connect our city You know, the same thing with our bikes. I know that we've been advocating for those protected bike lanes along Indian Creek and Collins and ensuring that there's real connection throughout the city. 6 in the morning, you still see, 5 in the morning, you still see folks commuting to work and on Collins without any kind of protection whatsoever. They're in the lanes and they're going in, and I see more and more every day at early hours of folks using these streets. And I think that's going to become more of a trend. And so we need to think a little bit out in the future, because it's not permitted on the Beachwalk, and the Beachwalk it has a lot of competition. How will we accommodate that in the future? I don't know if Captain Madison has any answer for that, Mr. Gonzalez or commissioners or anyone else.
Well, Ana Maria, I can take a stab at least from an infrastructure perspective. What's important is to provide the infrastructure, to make sure that we continue to build the protected bike lanes, and partnering with FDOT to do so, because the closest major roadway to the Beachwalk is Collins Avenue, and Collins Avenue is a state road under FDOT's jurisdiction. So whenever FDOT's coming in with a project, whether it's to resurface or whether it's a reconstruction, we're partnering with them to see how to include bike lanes. And it sounds like something very simple, but it's not, because a lot of times it comes at the expense of something else. Like something's got to give, whether it's a travel lane that has to give, or whether it's a parking spaces, parking lane that has to give. But our right of way is built, our roads are built curb to curb. They're built out. It's not like we have extra additional space that we could just build bike lanes on. So it gets very tricky. And you know, dealing with an outside agency like FDOT is always a challenge. Their priorities don't always align with ours, so that's where the collaboration is so important. And you know, I'll bring up as an example, and it was to a big extent also the advocacy of MBNA that's going to make it possible for Collins Avenue to have bike lanes from 26th Street to 41st Street. And that's so important, because though that bike lane, which is going to go northbound on that section of Collins Avenue from 26th to 41st, is going to be the companion facility for the bike lane that's currently on Indian Creek Drive as you travel southbound along those same limits of 41st to 26th. So, you know, extremely important to continue to push that agenda forward. And again, it's a challenge because it always comes at the expense of something else. You know, a lot of times if we improve pedestrian safety, it comes at the expense of vehicular traffic flow. And it's just the nature of the beast. But I think from an infrastructure perspective, the key is going to be continuing to build the infrastructure so that these devices, the scooters, the electric bikes, have a safe place to travel outside of the travel lane, so that they're not slowing down all the cars behind them, and not on the sidewalk, so that they're not posing a safety concern for pedestrians.
Thank you for those comments. We're going to go ahead. Anything else from anyone from the board or members?
Very good points were made. We have a long agenda. Beachwalk can take a whole meeting, so let's move on. But thank you, Jose, for those comments, and Laura for joining us and updating us. The shrub encroachment is another thing that we work on to make sure that all properties, anybody present here that faces the Beachwalk, please keep the encroachment out of the Beachwalk so that people that want to feel safe and walk on the edges can do so. Commissioner Minor, I think, just joined back. So
and Oscar, those that are allowed, Oscar has put a resource in the chat, and we'll go ahead and view those resources and discuss them at the executive board meetings and bring them back to the member group. If you're interested in participating, if Beachwalk is something that you're passionate about, if you're annoyed at the encroachments, if you want to see better safety, cameras, visibility, anything, feel free to join our Beachwalk working group. It's led by Alicia. It's very dynamic. They've made a lot of progress, and just kind of, working through some of these issues in real time. So feel free to join them at their next meeting. Moving on to public space though. In our public space meeting, we have our committee right now, working group, it's led by Deborah Lake. We have 2 items. One is your Miami Beach Drive and the other one is the dog park. Miami Beach Drive, Deborah, if you'd like to jump in, I believe that meeting was rescheduled with the city to revisit. There's new bollards that are being installed. Commissioner Fernandez has led the effort in having, in helping to set the tone of what it could be and that it's in the city asset. And then Director Gomez from Public Works Department has done a fantastic job in outlining for us some short, mid, and long-term goals. And it's very much in line with what all of you have shared with us of what you'd like to see. We want it to be an asset. We want it to be a promenade in our community. And I think I really commend the Public Works Department. They've done a fantastic job and listening to the community and working something in that seems realistic, and it has that long-term vision. So still there's a lot of work to be done, but it's exciting to say that it's started. Deborah, any other comments on behalf of your committee on Miami Beach Drive? And then we'll go on to the dog park that I believe those from Parks are here with us today.
No, I'm good here. Thank you, Annie.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. And then we have some properties and new members that are joining MBNA and that have been talking about different ideas for this, for that beach park area. And it was a little concerning to MBNA when we saw that it was in the budget for 2026. We have made a request to see how and also the price tag on it and how it was mirrored to Allison Park. We don't want to get into the details now, but we've received a lot of feedback from different properties on what they envision would be best for that area. We want to see this happen sooner than later. And we agree with our members, it should happen sooner than later. We agree it shouldn't be as expansive possibly, that maybe we should pilot something a little more flexible, possibly right after Art Basel, after any of our public spaces are used. We have an issue. We have board members and that can speak to it if they feel comfortable today, of folks that are engaging in illicit behavior in this public space. We have vendors that feel threatened in this public space. We have residents that are constantly using it as a dog park already in this public space. So we need a solution and we need it quick. We can't wait another 2 years or wait for new development to come and have this grand old idea of what they're going to do with this area. We need to serve the residents that are there, those that are paying taxes year in and year out, and those that want to use this space and they want to feel safe in their community today, not 2 years from now. 2 years from now, happy to entertain any idea of how we can make MidBeach better. We're huge proponents of improving our community. I don't want to look like those people that are not in my backyard. No, I'm all about my backyard. I want my backyard to be better and greater every single day, but it's got to improve today. We can't just keep our eyes on the future. So wanted to put that plug in. Our next meeting, Deborah, your next meeting is November 14th?
15, I think, or 14?
15 at 6 p.m. 2 Wednesdays from today. At 6 p.m. So yeah, so everyone feel free to join that. Anyone from the Parks Department that is on the call that would like to comment, anyone from our board, please raise your hands and we'll go ahead and call everyone. Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that. Anyone else from the staff? My cell phone, oh, brave. You see how brave Captain Madison is? She already put her cell phone in the chat.
That's right.
Wow. Everybody put a heart on that. That is impressive. And thank you, Commissioner Minor, for offering to help. We could include a dog park in 47th Street. Yes, absolutely. So 47th Street, we have some big ideas, and that's our next project on our public space once we get through 36th Street. That is currently already open. 47th is just used as a staging, and now with Art Basel around the corner, they're going to stage again. So we didn't want to get into it in 2023. It's going to be early in 2024. We'll work with that item. Anything else? Okay. Thanks for everyone being so active in the chat. Appreciate that as well. Moving on to our next item, it's an update from Indian Creek. Randy, if you're with us and you're able to share, you can give a quick update on where we are as an organization, our positions, our concerns, and our upcoming meetings.
Yeah, thank you, Anne-Marie. I apologize, no camera. My camera broke this morning, so I apologize. We have been working, trying to maybe direct the city to better landscape the area between the Jersey barrier and the water's edge. The contractor has started work along there. If any of you have noticed, they've leveled the topsoil off, they've staked the sidewalk, and we are concerned that the proposed landscaping is too extensive and is going to really create a barrier, a visual barrier along the shoreline from Indian Creek. And we think that it should be a very visible creek. It's spectacular. If you live in the buildings on the creek, the view is fantastic. We fully support a landscaped area, but we want to make sure that it's a landscaped area that is safe for pedestrians using the area along the shoreline. It's a great opportunity for a linear type park, but we want to make sure that the landscaping is compatible with the people that live along Indian Creek and people who will be using the space hopefully in the future. So we have presentations to different people, a city manager and a council member this week to show them a presentation that I have put together to illustrate what this landscaping actually looks like in a sort of a three-dimensional view. Unfortunately, we've only seen it in plan view, and I did a fairly in-depth analysis of what the plant material was going to be, what it would look like in so many years, and it has a pretty significant impact on those people who will be living along Indian Creek. So we're working hard to see if we can't help the city create the best atmosphere that I know that we all want.
Thank you so much, Randy. And just to echo your comments, MBNA really wants to ensure that what has been promised to the community and communicated with the community was in fact what we had understood through that plan view, right? That unfortunately we just can't interpret as community members. We don't have that technical expertise, but we were very vocal on ensuring those properties that they provided an easement for the city to use, that still own that land, and they are in contract with the city, and so we want those properties to have those contracts honored as well. Andres, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I've been speaking to a lot of people who live around there in some of the buildings, and some of the concerns is that on the bus stops there's no bus shelters, so it's very hot. And just a thought process, because it's all on the city side, not on the county side regarding those bus shelters. But an alternative could be to add canopy style trees near the bus stops to sort of create some type of natural shade if the city's not going to install bus shelters. And I know that that has a double-edged sword, but maybe a canopy could be an alternative to the bus shelters. I don't know if Laura or some of the other commissioners might have some information on that.
I know that the transportation department is working on bus shelter, canopy trees. That might be part of the problem that concerns Randy, that it would block the view of the people in that area. So I know that they're meeting with the city tomorrow. And Jose, do you have any information, if you're still on, about the protection for bus shelters?
I am on. So, Commissioner, you're right. We have a contract with Outfront to install bus shelters. The bus shelters have been designed. They've gone to design review board, a historic preservation board. They're approved. We just received the final design drawings from Outfront. The next step is to build. They're getting ready to build the first bus shelter that they call their prototype. It's a prototype because based on that first one, that one will be the mold, if you will, for all the others. So for that first one, which takes the most time to build, they've told us that would take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So we're hoping that, the first bus shelter will be in place within the next 3 to 6 months. Once that prototype is built and it's, good to go, then from that point on, it's like an assembly line, and they'll start installing bus shelters. And we're going to prioritize the locations that currently do not have shelters. So these that we're talking about on Indian Creek, they're bus stops that do not have shelters. So that corridor will be one of the first corridors to receive the new bus shelters, since it doesn't have any at this point. I don't have a schedule just yet for the Indian Creek Drive corridor. As soon as I do, I will share that, but that's sort of the approach.
Within your approach, your estimated timeline is 6 months, did you say? So
For
is
the
that
prototype.
for the
For the
prototype?
prototype.
So, and then you said it would be very quick after that. So are we looking at because when the heat, right? When in the season of our highest season here. So are we thinking that for Memorial Day, we'll have our first one installed?
Memorial Day, certainly, I think that's a very realistic goal to have the first one, the prototype installed by Memorial Day. And barring any, issues with it, as long as that prototype is accepted by the city, particularly from a structural perspective, these are shelters that have to withstand wind loads of, upwards of 165 miles an hour. So, there's certain acceptances and checks that go along with that prototype. As long as everything passes muster, from that point on, Outfront has said that they're going to start just, rolling them out. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that the Indian Creek Drive corridor is, the first corridor to receive bus shelters, given that it currently doesn't have any, just bus stops.
Just out of curiosity, are we reinventing the wheel here? Are these bus shelters so different than any other city?
They're unique. They're unique to Miami Beach. They're very different than the existing ones. They don't look like our existing ones. The roof structure is really the most unique characteristic that they have. The roof is going to have solar. It's going to have solar capabilities, and it's also going to be aesthetic. So I could share. I don't have one with me now, but I could share an image of what the bus shelters will look like. They have a Miami Beach look and feel.
Are they the ones that you had shared with the community? I believe we have them on our website. Alicia, do you want to share that?
Hey, I was looking for them. Are they the same ones that were approved 4 years ago or something like that, or have they been modified, Jose?
They've been modified.
Can you share the what is being proposed? We have not
Sure.
heard about this, or this is the first time we hear about the design already being in design phase and approval. If you can do that, I will update the website right away. If you can do it tonight, that would be great. And I'll get it up. Hey, before we move on to another topic, so let me share the screen real quick, because Randy worked very hard on this. And it's also on the website for anybody to see. So you can see what he's talking about as far as shrubs. So
and if you want, Alicia, now that you have it up, thank you so much, Randy, if you'd like to facilitate.
Yes, go ahead, Randy, and you can facilitate this. I've got it on the screen for you. Go ahead. Randy?
These are some of the plans that we prepared based on the plant material that have been approved for the area between the Jersey Barrier and the creek. And what we realized was that a lot of the lower level plant material actually are trees. The ground covers are effectively trees that will have to be kept very short to maintain their height, which, it's just a maintenance problem. A lot of silver buttonwoods, which grow to 12, 15 feet height, will create a solid barrier if not regularly maintained. And then the upper plant material is a very, very dense, very closely planted plant material that effectively, this is a building right there that you're looking at on Indian Creek existing. And then the next picture is what it would look like after about 5 to 6 years of plant growth. It's a solid wall of plant material that we effectively would have no view to the water. There are some ideas to open that up, create more views, and provide shade for people on the sidewalk, things like that, but it doesn't have to be a solid barrier. This is the cross section looking down the creek. On the left is Indian Creek Drive, and you can see this is what it looks like now with no plant material was all removed. And then the next image is what it looks like with the landscaping. Actually, the real plant material that's in the plan is very, very dense. I think denser than it certainly needs to be. Virtually the views from buildings would be completely cut off for at least the first 5 floors. Once you get above that height, you'll probably be able to see down into the creek. This is a view from a balcony, existing view. There were some canoers one day going down the creek. This is what the view looks like now. Unfortunately, this is not transitioning properly, but this picture that you see here, landscape wall, is all the plant material that's being planned. It's very, very, very dense, effectively taking away all the water views that the units facing Indian Creek would have. So we're just very concerned that the plant material needs to be evaluated. This is another property that's under development actually at 29th and Indian Creek. This is the existing conditions. They have proposed a new building that has received a lot of support from the city because of its unique saving the old historic lower story building and turning it facing Indian Creek. But with the landscaping proposed by the city, this is effectively what they will see. This is looking back towards the building, but of course it works both ways. It's a solid barrier for that building looking at the creek. So their waterfront views are kind of almost completely removed with the landscaping proposed by the city. This is a document they prepared. We're concerned that a lot of the design features were designed from the other side of the creek and not our side of the creek. That's actually in their documents about buffering Indian Creek from the other side. And I was part of when they first came to us and asked us if we could turn our properties over to them in this. And I was very supportive because I thought a linear park would be a fantastic amenity for Indian Creek, and I still think it is. It's going to be beautiful when it's done, but it's just that we really need to make sure, as Anna Marie said, this is what we were promised, which was a linear park, not a linear wall of landscaping to block Indian Creek from the west.
It's our understanding there's an excessive amount of trees that have been purchased for a substantial amount of money that was not necessary, that you feel could have been done in a much
the landscaping could have been reduced significantly. We're not having any lighting, which is also a very major concern because we've had a real problem up till recently with homeless and even people living out on that space with a tent one day. Someone went out there and stayed there until I think the police may have removed them. But the landscaping ground covers and lower level is for the most part pretty good, very extensive, but there's just far too many trees, very dense trees, very closely planted, completely blocking the view from the adjacent properties. And some of the lower plant material are actually trees planted as ground cover, which, you know, from a landscape architecture point of view, is just an ongoing maintenance problem. You really want to plant material that's appropriate for the size and the height you want. I think the views should be kept open all the way along there. Even as you walk down Indian Creek, you should be able to see out to the creek, despite the Jersey barrier blocking the view a little bit.
Thank you so much, Randy. I appreciate you giving us a little more of a thorough background on that. And again, not only does it, what we feel, violate the agreement between those properties that provided an easement, that I understand we want to build something and all of us pay taxes and the seawall, everybody's contributed to it, but that land, that piece of land belongs to this side of the creek. So regardless of who lives on what side, it's the agreement between those that made that easement, and you can't block people's water view. That's why we live in Miami Beach. We want places that are safe. We don't want places that encourage encampments and individuals experiencing homelessness or engaging in illicit behavior to be hanging out in our community. We want a community that's connected. We want a community that's safe, that's well lit, and that has water views. And I think that those messages are really clear, and hopefully we can look at how the current contract, unfortunately, could be relooked at and possibly install some of those trees and other areas and bulb outs. Going to our last and final item for today, I know we've skipped over a couple of items, but we have Senator Pizzo is with us today. I know he is no longer representing the MidBeach neighborhood. He is now north of us. Everybody hold back your tears. but he is known to be the expert. And Senator Jones, when we reached out and he had a conflict today, he said the expert on this is my colleague. And we're just so happy and grateful that he has just gotten off a plane, is on the way to or from Tallahassee, but he's with us today. And this is an item we've discussed numerous times, but our condominium members are in budget season. They're about to discuss budgets. Our insurance rates are through the roof. Some say, thankfully, people are being insured, that there's only a couple people that will insure us, and then everyone's feeling this is a crisis, it's out of hand. What is government doing, if anything? Can they do anything? What is happening at a state level? Senator, welcome, and if you could please give us a little bit of an update.
Sure. So I'm glad to be here. Dry your eyes. I don't think anyone's actually crying, but so my district just sort of flipped. What was my northern boundary is now my southern boundary going north. So I'm still keeping coastal Florida. So it's very condo laden, very heavy. And my heart is still with you guys. So whenever you need me, please reach out. So what are we doing about insurance? Well, up until now, not enough for actual consumers and constituents. So we've had meetings with Citizens and other insurance companies, and then I had a follow-up meeting with Citizens CEO last week, and he said, Senator Pizzo, I want to come to your district. I owe that to you. You know, where do you want to meet? I said, let's meet in my home. So we literally had our meeting in my condo. So I'm the only one of 40 senators in the state of Florida that actually lives in a condo. And you have to understand, it's taken several years. I filed bills on condos before the Surfside tragedy to get my colleagues to understand that condos are not a second and third home phenomenon. They're actually, for retirees, they're actually homes. Like these are our largest assets. So here's where we are. You're paying a lot more for the same or less coverage as you have over the past few years. I have 2 condos in Sunny Isles Beach. I went to insure both of them. The only one that would insure it is Citizens. Come to find out last week that I was even though, as many of you know, we're capped in Miami-Dade County with our coverage amount, come to find out I was paying the most out of any Citizens policyholder. So if you think all politicians are crooks and getting discounts, they're not. So I don't want to be the person setting the market in that situation. And I said, listen, for those of you who have Citizens, and by the percentages, probably 10-15% of people watching or family or friends have it, the rates are just untenable, even though they're claiming that they're 40-50% lower than actuarially sound rates. And so here's what's really scary is those people who have Citizens for condo units are actually subsidizing those policies that they are charging too little for. And I finally basically got them to admit that's the truth, that policies in condominiums, especially in coastal areas, are being charged premiums that are subsidizing everybody else. And I believe that to be the case for the entire market on a unit owner basis. Last session, I was successful in being able to pull out, I don't even know if anyone noticed, or maybe they heard it on the news, but it was a disaster idea to require flood insurance, even for unit owners in high-rise condos. And I'm sitting on the Senate floor saying, what the hell does a 15th, 16th, 17th floor unit need flood insurance for? It's not a pipe bursting. It's not wind-driven rain. They're talking about flood water like rising from it was insanity. And frankly, your legislature as a whole has bent over backwards to try to remove risk from companies that are in the risk business. And so last session's most recent bill removed the ability for you to hire an attorney on a contingency basis. And then when your claim is successfully paid and you're receiving it, that your attorney can collect fees. Now you have to go out of pocket from the beginning. And if you have a $25,000, $50,000 claim, you're not going to spend $25,000 on that claim to go chase the same amount of money. So here's what they're claiming now are the biggest issues. When an insurance company gives you a policy, and just wave and tell me to shut up if you want to ask a different question, but otherwise I'll just keep going. But if you're if you have a condo policy and you're insured, let's say for $600,000, the insurance company's not keeping your whole policy to themselves and keeping and assuming all of that risk. They're actually buying an insurance policy themselves over a certain amount or a portion of that certain amount above that, which is called reinsurance. And they're claiming that reinsurance market that they're subject to has exploded itself, and that they're basically having to pass on the cost to policyholders like you and I. and where the state needs to come in on some sort of assistance is going to be able to tap and make adjustments in that market, in that reinsurance market. But we keep getting a narrative that it was litigation that was out of control. And then I got real numbers from citizens. For instance, they have 1.4 million policies statewide, but they only have 22,000 open lawsuits. That's like 1.7%, 1.16. So it's not as high, and that's the narrative that's being used. So on the reinsurance market, we've got to help, and we can help there. On the CAT fund, I think we can also further compress it. That's available dollars that we have that insurance companies can tap into. But the other thing too is most of your condos and your associations, as you know, are required by statute to get appraisals every 3 years. What we're finding though, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I would like to know what we're finding with that appraisal. And along those lines,
yeah,
was a question. They said that
Sure.
you were going to delay, that you were trying to delay the reserves requirement. And
So the very first year, I'll take the reserve requirement first. In the very first bill that we had, the first permutation a couple years ago, we had to do something. I know it was a tough love measure. The House was inflexible on waiving reserves because it was that was the House's position. On the Senate side, we were a little bit more flexible on that. I mean, you could dissolve a condo with 80%, but you can't 100% can't waive. It wasn't really sensible. But and then last year we pulled it back, so it was going to be budgets originally that you made in 23 for 24 had to be on the glide path to be fully funded. Now it's 24 for your 25. Some other clarifications that we made: milestone inspections are no longer just because of 3 miles from the coast. It's now defaults to 30 years unless a county handling that local agency wants it to be 25 years. So it's no longer just geography specifically; it's the age of the building, 3 stories and over. But on the reserve issue, it's still really important to me is that a lot of these dollars are going in, if they're even kept in a simple savings account, they're not really being able to be used or to be able to earn money. So that's a bill that I filed a couple of years ago, and I continue to do so. I think this year we'll get some legs, so you guys have more wiggle room with dollars. But on the reserve issue itself, we sought to delay it, but you're not going to see a delay each and every year just because people can't pay it. And I think, and I want to be very clear,
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Everyone was going to have that reserve, but it may be delayed from January, is what you're saying?
No, I don't think that you're going to see much more wiggle room on pushing it back even more. I think what the state so I want to be clear with everybody, and I want people to assume, I don't say worst case scenario, but just to be prepared, right? I mean, the legislature shouldn't have to tell buildings, over the last 10 years that if your association fee was static at X number of dollars while the price of everything else was going up and inflation was creeping in, that you were probably deferring some important maintenance if you were static with your numbers. It's just a reality. And I think some buildings were artificially suppressing those association fees when they should have been collecting $15 to $50 more a month but here we are. And I effectively use the analogy that, I eat cheeseburgers every day, you smoke, don't exercise, and all of a sudden your doctor says you need a drastic lifestyle change. And so now it's been sort of go slow, hurry up. Obviously, this is being compounded by insurance going out of control. I want to go back to the appraisals real fast. What I'm finding with a lot of my buildings, because I now have Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Hallandale, I still have Sunny Isles Beach where I live with my family. I'm finding that these appraisals that are required every 3 years, that the insurance company is basically wiping their backside with those and saying, we're going to use our valuation and not that one. So it begs the question that why, by statute, if we're required to use it, then a carrier should at least acknowledge it, use it, or we shouldn't have that requirement anymore because they're not cheap. Multiply the thousands of dollars that are spent on those appraisals times every building in my district, 64% of which are condos. I also like to get rid of, you got some sales tax baked into some of these policies too. On an individual basis, it doesn't seem like a lot. It's like taking $1 off of your FPL bill. But I have 565,000 constituents. Senator Jones and Senator Garcia have 1.1 million collectively. So that's millions of dollars that can be saved there. Also, I would like there to be further exploration of some buildings being able to not necessarily go to loan, but have a risk pool kind of idea. 5 buildings in Miami Beach, 5 in Jacksonville, 5 in Tampa, 5 in Bay County are not going to be suffering the same storm, and they can right off the bat manage that risk in a pool and probably pay a fee of 4 to 5% and not have to pay the 15%. Your agent is getting a large commission in perpetuity, and for many years was also sort of finding coverage that was lean enough not to give you sticker shock on coverage amounts, because they want to keep the commission on the premium every year. That's kind of a no-brainer. Citizens keeps 7 to 10%. Their agents that place it do, but your other insurance agents are taking 15%. The other problem is that I'm sure, as you're seeing in a lot of your buildings where you have a deductible, you can't exceed 5% on your insurance deductible for the building. Otherwise, you can't get Fannie and Freddie approval. But if you're 5% or under on some of these buildings that have $100 million valuation is not that big of a deal anymore on the beach and Sunny Isles and stuff, and Bal Harbor and Surfside. But if you're on the hook for a 5% deductible, the building's on the hook for the first 5 million. So I really need to sort of parse out from an actuarial basis. We'd like to bring the bigger players, I don't want to say in, but back in to some extent. We're the only state where you can't bundle and save. And basically what they're seeing is
and the reason why we can't do that is because the state legislature doesn't support it, or what's going on? Why?
Honestly, because
I'm not on my condo board, but I'm feeling anxious just hearing you talk about all the problems and not feeling like there's any clear, easy solution. This doesn't sound easy. It sounds like everybody's going to have to pay more to live in these areas, to live in higher density, to have sometimes what we think is quality of life.
So while I do not believe that the last iteration of the insurance bill that passed is necessarily consumer friendly from a protection and coverage standpoint, I think it will reflect and result in lower or stabilized premiums going forward, for the very reason, and I'm going to be very candid about this because you know me not to beat around the bush here. I think we're going to have a lot of new insurance companies popping up with generally the idea and under the guise that they're likely not going to be paying out a lot, and therefore they'll price it accordingly. What do I mean by that? When you're purchasing and closing on a property and you have all of these things on the HUD form and you're like, oh my, what title search? Why the hell am I paying this? And legal fees and this? You're kind of looking for the lowest cost provider that you can while still satisfying your lender for most of my constituents. So they'll find some new startup companies that will start writing policies, the ones that want to open up shop. And honestly, it's too cheap to start a company here in Florida. It's $15 million in capital to start writing policies on people's largest assets. And I would like to see a greater stress test. I think the larger companies with economies of scale would feel more comfortable doing more business in Florida if they didn't think that their competitors were cut rate startups who can go get together $15 million with investors. If you guys saw the Miami Herald article yesterday, it was also in the Tampa Bay Times. I think it's probably running nationally now. Right after we passed the last insurance bill, the whole story was about.
Guy, come on, give me a break here.
Hello.
Sorry, go ahead, Senator.
If you catch the article yesterday in the Herald, we have legislators who now want to invest in insurance companies because it's going to be kind of a sweet situation. The worst penalty, there's nothing punitive, but the worst penalty is after you start up. If you can make some money for a few years, you can distribute really handsome dividends and returns to investors and partners. And then when it doesn't work out, you can sort of just wind down and all of a sudden people get notices about having to go find another carrier. So I think if we were a little bit more prudent and put in greater stress tests, and also the last component that I want to make sure that we include are actually ratings on these companies. Right now, we have a company, Demotech, where the insurance company pays them directly to give them a rating. Seems a little bit of a conflict of interest. So there are some other rating agencies that I would like to see sort of side by side that we had when we, that brokerage firms were and hedge funds were forced to do, and mortgage companies and things like that. I do believe that there is stabilization and price reduction on the horizon. It's just likely to be perhaps a company that you've never heard of, that does not have a long track record or long history, if your biggest concern is finding affordable placement of a policy to satisfy your lender. But then if you have a particular size, if you have an outsized problem, if you have total loss, I think your people are going to be better off there than they are if they have $25,000 and $50,000 losses. That's where we are.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. And I know you went over it a couple of times. The reason why we don't have a lot of competition, that we only have one major one in Florida, but it's popped up again in the chat. If you could just reiterate that point before we open it up to general questions.
And then I did see one question that jumped out. Maybe that's why you asked about the delay. So last year's bill was going to be like 23 for 24 budget. This year's 24 for 25 budget. I want to be clear, you can pull reserves. A lot of the studies, which are separate, when you have to do milestone inspection, just kind of like Miami-Dade's had a recertification program forever on 40 years. Now we are bringing it down to a shorter time frame. However, I just want to be clear because this is still a point of confusion. Fully funding reserves beginning in 25 does not mean that you have to have the entire amount of money on hand. People, I think, where there was some confusion, it's like, oh, even if there's 5 or 10 useful years left on the roof, that you're going to have all of those dollars in hand in 25. That's not the case. You just have to be on the path. If you have $10 million that you should be reserving with something with a 10-year useful life schedule remaining, then it's $1 million a year. I like for there to be an allowance of conservative investment. I mean, my savings account right now at Valley National Bank, it's 5.3%, right? Condo associations are not getting it for those dollars. And the toughest thing to convince my colleagues is the idea of requiring people to actually start putting those reserves away, not waiving them, because my colleagues live in single family homes and no one's ever going to tell them that they have to put X number of dollars or percentage of their paycheck away and they can't touch it.
Right. What about what we can do, and where the condominium and boards, and Alicia, I know you had brought this item too, and you're the president of two large or master association here in MidBeach. So you feel free to jump in. But what is it that they can do this season? They're going to have to raise the amounts for everyone that lives in condominiums. What can we do, and how can we be supportive of this legislation? How can we get it out there, and how can we, what can we do?
The first thing is to summarize literally each individual situation. So, and use us and lean on us, and then shamelessly from really good ideas and really big problems is how we draft remedies and cures to these issues. Otherwise, it becomes an academic exercise. I think you've seen the horrible product of an academic exercise over the last few years, last few legislative sessions, from people in Tallahassee right here who don't live in condos and don't understand what the hell we're talking about and don't understand real risk. It was a staff member's idea to require you to get flood insurance in a high-rise building. Make that make sense. It doesn't make sense because they looked at a two-dimensional map in a flood zone and said, oh yeah, it's a flood zone, it should have flood insurance. Yeah, but if you're 300 feet above the ground, it makes absolutely no sense. One big important point, you were mentioning another person that's on right now. I think you said that's on a master association or two associations.
Yes.
Master and the Green Diamond Condo and the Master Association and the Blue, because we're representing.
Okay,
and
perfect
we
example.
just went through the perfect hurricane. We had the appraisal,
right,
and the renewal. So both coming in together, and the appraisal for all of you that are on is going to be a shocker because it's coming in substantially higher than before. So when you add that, we're going up 36 to 38% in our maintenance fees, and we can't help.
So
100% for this.
So two things on that point. I had the CEO of Citizens literally in my condo. And then as we had finished the meeting, I said, let me walk you down to show you the problem and I actually had a large insurance broker there who's had incredible trouble getting policies for master or individual towers and individual buildings. So I walked down, and our building has 2 towers with pool and amenities in the center, parking garage underneath both. I said, you guys will not take the policy for this building because it's part of an association or a master association, and the amenities are not an individual single purpose entity that's shared by so they were getting rejected from not covering, even though we're talking about the pool and the parking garage in the center. and they're therefore at the mercy of going to whomever might go ahead and write that policy. I needed to physically show them what they're rejecting on paper at a satellite remote location instead of actually physically seeing and going. It makes no sense to bifurcate these two or to to split the baby. It just absolutely makes no sense. So that's an important issue. Here's the other thing. You just got your appraisal back. Obviously, everything is contributing to its increased appraisal. The market value itself, inflation, if you need sheetrock, lumber, whatever it is that you need to repair, all of the costs of labor materials have gone up. So, and the market itself has gone up. Here's the thing. If it's the green and blue diamond, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, so it's worth a lot. It's got a high value reflective of the market, and everybody's rushing down to move to Florida because we're so star-spangled awesome. The thing is, you have to do an appraisal on a full value of the building, or buildings, I should say. You're never going to have, I mean, Surfside is a horrible, horrible tragedy, and we're doing these things legislatively to require these inspections on structural issues so that never happens again. If we don't have a good faith basis to believe it's never going to happen again because we're putting these measures in place, then tell me the scenario where the entire value of your building is ever going to be tapped for insurance purposes.
Correct. That's correct. Mhm.
Okay. You have a crazy storm surge of 30 feet. It's still not touching the first residential floor in your building. 35 feet. It's still not wiping out. And those
Senator,
individual units. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt just a second because I
Go
want to
ahead.
make sure I wrap this item up and I understand. So you had said our first action item is really to be able to summarize each of these issues, each of these problems that are out there, communicate them, and then I know you said we'd start chucking away at this, but I mean, it just seems it's like our next sargassum issue. It's just so massive.
Huge.
And it's also going against some of the biggest agencies that have the biggest pull at a state level, and where policy is being made, and in condominiums, and we're
just showing citizens that situation of what a master really is with two individual entities was enough for them to literally go back to the drawing board on that issue. So I brought a broker who had condos in Aventura, Sunny Isles, Bal Harbor, whatever. It was running into the same issue over and over and over again. I was like, Sean Gabay, nice guy. I go, Tim, I need you to solve Sean's problem, because Sean places these insurance products and policies for my constituents who are freaking out. So let's figure out how we get there. Let's say yes and figure out how we get there. So on an individual basis, well, listen, when condo owners have issues with DBPR, I'm like, I don't want you waiting six months to 1 year to get a rejection letter that says they have no jurisdiction.
Are you suggesting for every massive condo in South Florida to be calling their elected official to help set up those meetings? I mean, how are we? Like, what am I going back to my members and telling them? I'm a little bit at a loss at what do I...
Not even the massive condos. It's everybody's being affected. It's not just the big ones.
Now, here's
everybody that has an oceanfront condo or 3 miles in.
Here's who else. Here's who else I brought to that meeting. First Service has a huge market share. I talked to Campbell Property Management a lot. So I had the First Service folks come to that meeting as well. I mean, they have a huge market share in my district. That's a captive audience that's already in the buildings. The property managers are the talking heads and messengers and communicators to the residents. Yeah,
absolutely. They're the conduits to those that live there. The ones that live there are being like, I mean, I understand that system of pulling these conduits to be able to get to those that are really impacted by this. But that's what you're doing. But how? There's just
what can we do?
We're not even in your district anymore. Like, how do we benefit?
Because I'm not doing them on a one-off basis. Whatever changes you make at the state level inures to the benefit of everybody. And I have, from a physical environment, you guys are similarly situated to the like kind product type that's in mind. Whether it's boutique or bonanza, whether it's super tall or and 22nd century technology, where your car and your airplane go up to your unit with you. I get it.
People tell us that they're paying 200% more now insurance than they did before. Is that possible?
Yes, it is.
Sure is.
And so what would someone in that position who owns or or, you know, is in having to pay so much more, is responsible for these buildings, what should they do?
Well, the first thing that any good agent does, if they've had a client for a long time, let me ask, at the Green Diamond, have you had the same insurance agent for 5 years, 10 years?
For 23 years.
Yeah, ask them maybe this year, instead of taking a 15% commission,
They
because
did, they
there's
cut
such,
it.
they cut it.
It's
That's
brown and brown and brown.
Brown and brown. So that, I know that sounds like, you know, okay, that's one building, but I have to think things in a macro sense. You know, I actually said on the Senate floor last year, I go, I'm never selfish here. I vote against my self-interest all the time, but I'm also getting screwed in this bill, in this situation. So I'm really, you know, my wife and kids are not going to be happy about what we're passing here. On an individual basis, if I can get agents to haircut a little bit on their commissions across the board on the coast, for me, for my district, is tens of millions of dollars being saved.
The
And
problem,
again, I know it's $1 or $2 per person at a time, but if you start doing 10 of those things, we get close to, you know,
three unit owners took the whole package and chopped it, and nobody would touch these properties. Citizens is the last resort and the only one that would touch us. They wouldn't even look at our packages. So that right now, it's out of the question for most of these high-rise buildings to find alternatives. Next year, we're hearing that there's going to be quite a few more, obviously, because when you raise the rates, then there's more companies interested in coming to Florida. There was no hurricane.
It's a lot more attractive.
And it's a lot more attractive. So there'll be more competition. And
So
we
there's
heard something. We heard something. Can you answer this real quick? We heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, that next year, if there's another company that can insure us, we are required to take them, even if it's 20%.
So that's actually an 18-point font, and it's not your fault that you didn't know this, but that's actually an 18-point double-spaced font in every citizen's declaration and policy. And that's a question I actually asked sort of aloud and rhetorically last year on the floor. Most people also think Citizens is backed by the full faith and credit of the state of Florida. It's not, and it says it there. So here's what's really scary.
So we could go higher next year. It could go a lot higher, 20% higher.
The bill that passed actually allows for a 15% increase of what's called an anticipated shortfall, allows another 25% increase on a special assessment basis. And if it's not your primary home, they can increase the rate 50% on top of that. Now, here's the thing. Let's say I was capped at $1 million in coverage in Sunny Isles. Okay, between dwelling and contents, you cannot exceed that. Citizens will not insure beyond that. So I took the cap. My insurance policy was $36,000 last year. Okay, $36,000. Now, what about being forced to go to somebody else if another company, a third party, and they're basically giving out your information, and you're easy to look up for them internally, insurance-wise, to see if they go and they say, "Oh, look at this Jason Pizzo policy right here. He's at $36,000. All we have to do is come in at $42,000 or less, and he has to go with us." Now, here's the problem that I have. There's no additional risk that was slapped onto me in my unit between the $36,000 and the $42,000. All of that is just pure puffery and profit. There's no additional risk, which insurance should be based on. So even on your individual policy they have with Citizens, I would like them to take a look at it, because every time, you know, we present something, they take a closer look at it and they say, you know what, we probably could have done better on this. But if you have a gut suspicion that these prices are out of control because they're subsidizing probably other poorly planned or placed policy pricing, you're right. I was literally paying the most.
Doesn't Citizens have guaranteed commission to the brokers? Isn't that guaranteed amount that they have to give the brokers, or the brokers can say, I'm gonna, you know, give 5% from my pocket? Is that doable, or it's a guaranteed commission thing?
I know they have a range of 7 to 10%. Also, they have 3 different divisions that will be collapsing soon, but they are 3 separate divisions. So the division that the coastal risk, whatever it was, that insured my condo is separate from when they're doing a building or a shell, so to speak.
So, Senator, there's a question in the chat. Would you be able to put do you have, and you might already have this actually.
Put a list together of proposals and then come back at your
Or
invitation from
just
Raphael at
send it-
5700.
just- You know, why don't you just send it to us and then we can give you the feedback. I think Rafael's idea is great. You get
I think
even
it's a-
more feedback. Not that you don't already want to hear from your 500,000 constituents, but you know.
564,000, but who's counting?
This honestly can take a whole meeting just to talk about this.
It really could. It really could. And I know we've gone over a couple of different items today. I know there were more things that we wanted to get through. Andres Acion had asked a question here. Condo units don't need flood insurance. The building does. Is the senator saying they wanted to add each unit on a high rise?
What the senator is saying is last year, the bill that actually passed that was signed into law did require flood insurance, even for high-rise unit owners that had citizens policies as a way to get rid of citizen policyholders. And I screamed and yelled and stomped my feet, and they jokingly called it the Pizzo Amendment, that we removed it from law, that you don't have to have flood insurance in a high-rise building. Because I'm on the 26th floor, and I was wondering where the arc is that, you know, if it flooded that high. It was stupid, and it was put in there by a staff member in Tallahassee who doesn't live in a condo.
Right. I want to just remind everybody, the voting is going to happen a week from yesterday. You can vote tomorrow in early voting, and you can vote next week. It is extremely important if you live in
low turnout. I heard in Miami Beach. What's going on? We're
having a low turnout, and everybody on this call needs to go back to your boards. You need to go back to your hotel worker. You need to go back to everyone who lives in Miami Beach and ask them to vote, because it's a very big difference when you have someone who's representing you that lives in a place like you live. We live in a high density area in condominiums, and it's just really important that folks understand the needs. The reason why MBNA was created is we're not the same as the rest of MidBeach. We're not residential. We're not like the folks on the other side of the creek. We have very unique issues, and the hotels and the condominiums in this area have not been well represented historically in our city of Miami Beach politics, in our city of Miami Beach systems, funding, in the staff allocations and resources. I think that has really changed since 2017. I have seen some shifts, but the reason why I say hold back your tears is because there is something very meaningful when you have a champion on the floor that represents where you live and can understand some of those issues. If not, you have people making policies that have a huge impact on your pockets and on your quality of life, because they simply did them with the greatest intentions, but they don't represent your needs. And so I want everyone to just think about that. And please, if you haven't already done so, I encourage you, if you need a ride, if there's a senior, if there's someone in your building that needs a ride, reach out to MBNA. We'll help coordinate. We'll rally folks up. We can walk together to the polls this weekend, whatever you all want to do. We can do a party at our place. We offer anything. We just want you guys to get everybody to get out there and vote. With that, I want to thank Senator for joining us today. We did have.
I have a question for the senator.
Yes.
Are you going to be running for governor anytime soon?
Oh, I don't know. Not anytime soon. No, not anytime soon.
We need you.
Okay.
Hi, Deborah Lake. And listen, you have Senator Jones has, I think it's Marina should be on this call. She's a superstar. Yes. And here's the thing. We really actually don't have egos. We're the few that don't. So we are very comfortable with saying we don't know what we don't know and finding the right answer. So we specialize in some stuff. We're experts in nothing, but just reach out to us, and we are not shy about just finding a solution. So please reach out.
And Marina from Senator Jones's office has attended numerous meetings. She's coordinated town halls for us on transportation with the secretary. She's really Senator Jones' office.
And Anna Marie, I want to thank you because of your advocacy. We didn't need it, thankfully, but we were able to secure $5 million at the end of session this year to combat sargassum as a starter with the Division of Emergency Management because of your advocacy. So.
Thank you so much. And that's really thanks to everyone that's on this call, and Oscar Vasquez, who chairs our beach and water quality group, and just kind of pushing and trying to have some of those collaborative conversations. And we know you've been there since day one. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
There's more.
We're getting a lot of applauses here. Thank you, Senator.
That there in the chat. Jason Belisario, I sincerely apologize. We weren't able to get to your item today. We welcome you to come back and present at the beginning of our January or February meeting, whenever works best for you and your team. Thank you, everyone. Today's meeting has adjourned. The recording will be stopped, and I'll stay on to answer anyone's questions. Thank you.